This evening, we have Julie Williams returning to chat with us some more. She will be going a little more in depth around the Inflation Reduction Act and the savings opportunities that lie there. And Michael Hughes will also be presenting this evening, and then we will have some time for Q&A at the end. So if the floor is yours, Julie.
Awesome. Let's get the share screen going and get this started. All right. I'm going to shrink. There we go. So tonight we're going to talk about accelerating the solutions and what faith communities can do to create more solutions to our climate crisis. And advancing, there we go. So one thing that's pretty exciting right now that gives me a lot of hope, and I've been studying this since 1992, and definitely thought we would take charge and get on top of our climate concerns, 30 and 40 years ago, not this late in the game, but we can still be hopeful because of the Inflation Reduction Act. So what is it? Well, it was signed into progress almost a year ago. It's $369 billion of investment into our fuel infrastructure and energy infrastructure. It's designed to cut 40% of the US emissions by 2030, which would help keep us under 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming, which scientists say is the make or break point. And we're very close to that. Another thing that I would love for people to know, like I said, I've been watching this since 1992 when I started to become aware of climate chaos and where we were headed. And I ran into this great saying on a bike trail out in Southern Oregon, and it was going through some farmland, and it says, "You can't unchase the cow." And they were really trying to get people to not let their dogs roam out into the ranch areas and chase a cow, because then you exhaust it. And so I say that to people often. Now that I know about climate change and climate chaos and what I can do about it, I can't undo it. And so I am compelled now. And when COVID hit and we got to see the skies all clear above big cities in China and India and in LA, I went, oh my goodness, we really can fix this in short order if we just make some better choices. And so I made a choice then that I would not fly again until, and my partner was kind of like wonderfully supportive of that. Yet I put a caveat on it, and that is until governments show me that they are going to take a real step towards addressing climate chaos. Well, you know what? The IRA does that. Now, I'm not booking any flights right away because it also needs to be deployed and we need to see people take action. So still not flying, but I'm telling you, this is hopeful. It will fund over 100 programs over a really broad array of areas, like even farming, endangered species, waterways, but we'll get into that later. It will create over 9 million well-paying jobs. And a lot of these jobs will be in areas where people historically have not been able to get good paying jobs, or historically have been in the middle of the fossil fuel waste and pollution. It's designed to advance and correct racial, economic, and environmental justice, which makes me pretty excited because the people that have the least impact on our climate crisis are paying the most for it with their health and with their electric bills. So what will it do? So that $369 billion is going into land protection, wildlife protection, cultivating urban green space. So lots of trees planted in urban areas. It'll block roads. It'll reform the oil and gas industry, protect wetlands, promote sustainable agriculture and regenerative agriculture, which regenerative agriculture actually draws down carbon usage. Community health and clean manufacturing, so it will help create better and safe water supplies in urban areas, environmental restoration and pollution cleanup in areas that have been toxic, and Superfund sites, and healthier buildings as we retrofit buildings for clean energy. Another portion of it will promote clean transportation. So EV and EV charging, replacing heavy duty diesel trucks with electric trucks. I know that there will be a whole new fleet of electric trucks for our postal service. It'll also reconnect Black and Latinx communities in large urban areas that have been divided by highways. So people will be able to walk and bike to work and to and from their neighborhoods. So really awesome stuff going on. A huge portion of it is going to go to bring manufacturing back to US soil for batteries and microchips and all the sorts of things we need in order to create renewable energy. And the big wait for it, what will it do for you? Well, this is what it does for individuals. It's going to clean up our electric grid, and it's going to save the planet and save dollars for everyone. So improving the grid so that in shortages like we saw in Texas, when the grid went down and people died because they couldn't heat their homes, or they died because of carbon monoxide poisoning as they tried to heat differently. So improving the grid is a big deal. There'll be huge grants to support clean energy in frontline communities. So communities that are around and near coal-fired power plants and oil and fossil fuel refineries, they're going to get more grants to make their homes more livable and make asthma less common in their communities and clean up their areas. There'll be a reduced cost of solar energy to individual households. So, and we'll look at that when we get to the Rewiring America slide, but at the federal level, a 30% tax credit. And then also at the federal level, if you do not have income high enough to enjoy that 30% tax credit, there are also rebates to help people get into solar energy. There'll be thousands of dollars provided to purchase energy efficiency upgrades in every living space. Heating and cooling units, which are going to be so important as our area heats up, and everywhere is going to heat up. In fact, scientists believe that by 2050, there will be portions of most of the south part of the United States, the south half, the workers will not be able to work outside during the midday hours. They'll have to work at night and the early morning because it'll be too hot. So anyway, thousands of dollars to purchase energy efficiency upgrades, heating and cooling units, electric induction stoves to replace your gas stove. God, I'm going blank, but we'll get to that we'll see more, I promise. It'll also help the average family save up to $1,400 a year in savings on their electric or gas bill. And so that's pretty significant, that extra $1,400 a year, and that adds up over time. And so that helps defray the originating cost of purchasing your energy efficiency upgrades. The other thing it'll do is you feed that monster and it'll grow. So it'll help us expand wind, solar, and battery storage at the residential and commercial levels. Instead of the over $1 trillion that we give in subsidies to fossil fuels and their interests, we're now giving money to expanding the clean energy. So it's all sounding way better to me. So why is it so important to motivate your community to shift together to these energy efficiencies? Well, there's 3 levels that we have to look at. There's the politics, there's the situation we're in with our environment, and then there's just the pure economics. So politically, we know that the IRA was a bipartisan bill, not so. And you're watching right now as we're trying to put limits on our debt ceiling, that it's being toyed with as a pawn piece, as a chess piece. And Republicans wouldn't think twice about removing it. So who knows, we'll be running our government in the next election series. And we have 16 months to utilize these generous incentives and embed ourselves in the IRA and prove its value to the American people. So I think it's really important to prime the pump and have your people ready to engage with it as soon as it becomes viable. I'm going to tell you about the state of Oregon. Oregon Department of Energy just received the administrative rights for the IRA. It was in flux. And so that decision has been made. So that's how people will be able to access their rebates, is through the Oregon Department of Energy. They have had great experience doing this because they've been doing it all along for other energy efficiencies and especially for solar. They're also the administrators for a great program that the state of Oregon put into play after the heat bomb of 2020, that guarantees low-income HUD and low-income housing households can have access to heat pump technology to both heat and cool their homes and be energy efficient. So that's all coming through in Oregon, but who knows who'll be running the country 16 months from now. And so we have to prove that this is valuable and that it needs to remain here and coherent for people, no matter who's in office. The IRA is already providing a huge increase in well-paying jobs and commitments to build microchip and heat pump technology in primarily red states. So I think that's really interesting. They're trying to transition people off of employment through coal and natural gas and fracking and shift them to clean jobs with higher pay. And as well as the IRA does provide for healthcare for people who've experienced black lung from working in the coal industry. Geopolitically, the other thing it does is it reduces American dependence on foreign energy sources and it reduces greenhouse gases. This helps balance our trade with China, I spelled that wrong, and other world economic powers. So this is so important in a global sense, and it also comes home and it's important, is to individuals. So economically, the IRA incentivizes energy efficiency, providing money that recirculates in cities that utilize it. And what I mean by that is, I know for Corvallis, anytime there's federal money, especially federal money, we've all paid into that pool. And I want as many people in Corvallis to realize that incentive, as many as possible. And what happens is you saw that $1,400 that you can save per year on your energy bill, that recirculates here. And so it's like taking federal money and putting it in Corvallis and letting it work for Corvallis. You do have to put a little skin in the game. You got to give to get. You have to bridge a gap. So there'll be federal, Oregon, and if you live in PGE or Energy Trust, Pacific Power regions, there's 3 sets of incentives you can get. If you're low income, those incentives are really big. And so there's gaps you got to cover. So you do got to put a little skin in the game. But what we have to gain is incredible. So it creates more economic stability in our low income populations, especially, and that relieves some of our social services. So I do know with Seeds for the Soul, when we have gone back to talk with people who are lower on the income scale, when they get their solar, we're like, what do you do with your savings? And they said, well, we have more food security. And it's like, well, duh, right? So it really does help create more security in your communities. It reduces greenhouse gas and improves physical and mental health of communities. And I do want to say there are physical health issues with our heating planet and with particulate that are purely physical, but I think the mental health of our communities, I know my students when I was teaching feel the stress of climate change and they know what's going on and they don't see enough people doing enough about it and it stresses them out. I can tell you with what I know, I had to do a lot of research to teach sustainability and society at Corvallis High School for 14 years. And it keeps me awake at night. And doing things like this make me feel better, like there's hope. And there really is, if we engage. This stimulates the energy efficiency, EV and solar industries. It requires that moderate to upper income households pay up front in exchange for lucrative tax credits. So moderate and upper income households will still see up to, if not more than $1,400 in savings. They do not get the rebates, but they get a 30% tax credit to put in energy efficiency things. And when these energy efficiency upgrades go into your home, they actually pay for themselves over time. Whereas if you put your low efficiency thing in, it never pays you back. It's just always a cost. So you should see a significant reduction in your bills. It requires rebates and revolve loans for LMI households to access these rebates. So Wednesday night, we talked about Seeds for the Soul and how we prime the pump. So when we come upon a low to middle income household that finds out what the gap is, and with the IRA, the gap will be quite a bit smaller than the gap we're covering now. Often it's the deterrent, it's the barrier, and they won't jump onto the IRA and what it holds for them. So what we do is we pay their upfront costs, whatever remains after incentives, and they pay us back based on their savings. And it really works. It has a zero net effect on their budget. So we want, you know, people to support that in their communities. We're happy to teach communities how to do that in their area. And I just think it's one of the most important things we can do. Ira, can it save the planet? And that depends on us. And so to understand the situation that we are in, you got to first understand what are feedback loops and what are tipping points. So feedback loops are the life support systems of the planet, and there's anywhere from 26 to 36 different feedback loops. They're forests, it's polar ice, it's ocean currents, it's soils, it's the ocean's ability to absorb CO2. I mean, there's so many of them. When they're in balance, they are a negative loop. They're sequestering more carbon than they're putting out. Forests are a great example of that. So we have the forest there that's beautiful and healthy and providing oxygen, and then we have one that's burning. What's happening with these feedback loops is they're going from a negative feedback loop to a positive feedback loop, and that's a negative thing. That's bad. So as our forests burn, that nice healthy one has sequestered, you know, hundreds of years worth of carbon into the fiber of the tree. Trees are made of the air, really. They absorb the carbon dioxide out of the air and become carbon fiber that makes the tree, and which builds our houses and fences and all that stuff. That's storing. That's our carbon sequestration. When you see on that photo to the right, these fires that are happening, they're unleashing hundreds of years worth of CO2 back into the atmosphere. Not only that, they're no longer there to sequester it and suck it back out. And so these mega fires that we're having are really doing a huge damage, and they're becoming a positive feedback loop, and that's a bad thing. And I liken it to your liver. If you want to, it's your liver is a life support system in your body, and if you have a drink every night, maybe one, you know, your liver still takes a hit. It never gets to rest. It's always working on filtering that. But then, you know, maybe you have two, or maybe you have five a night. After a while, your liver gets overcome and it can no longer remove the toxins, and your body expires. That is exactly how a feedback loop works and what the tipping point is. So we're near tipping point in 16 to 19 of our life support systems. So can the IRA save the planet? It's very dependent on our action now. So scientists will tell you that we have about 7 years to make a drastic shift off of fossil fuels. That's to keep our temperature under 1.5 degrees, to shift to 100% renewable energy as fast as possible, to make our homes fossil fuel free as quickly as possible. And once they're fossil free, also as energy efficient as possible. So net zero homes are the future. They're better for us living in the home, and they're better for the future generations. So we really want to see this happen. And what's really cool is scientists tell us this. Oh, and just one other thing. Those tipping points, because CO2 stays in our atmosphere for 100 years, we're living with our grandparents' Industrial Revolution CO2, our parents' CO2, and now my generation, which I could be a grandparent, I suppose, by now. And so what happens is that carbon's there, and it's there to stay for 100 years. As we keep adding, what's going to happen is that feedback loop smacks into our grandchildren 20 years from now, but we set it up today. What we do today will affect them hugely, and they can't reverse it. Some scientists say that we are the last generation that has a choice. And if we don't choose to undo our carbon toxicity, our carbon addiction, we will lock future generations into no choices. They are just going to spend their whole time trying to adapt to a hotter, less vibrant world. I don't want to participate in that. So economists are hopeful. When I read some articles from the Princeton School of Economics and from Energy Innovations and a number of other articles, they say there's reason to hope. And that's kind of hard to believe sometimes, but there is reason to hope. So what these think tanks believe is that as the IRA is deployed, if we can deploy it widely and quickly, it could go down in history as the tipping point for climate action, like the pinnacle and pivotal point for saving our planet and saving our children's and grandchildren's future. Economists and banks report that they expect that the private investments in energy saving technologies will triple the IRA, cresting $1 trillion in investment in these energy solutions. And all of this using present technologies. We don't have to wait for carbon scrubbers. And in fact, carbon scrubbers really makes me think of those nasty planets on Star Wars where there's not a living thing visible. A carbon scrubber would have to be like a skyscraper when we would need thousands of them, and they take energy. They're not the way to go. You know what a tree is? A tree is a carbon scrubber. We need more of those. So when we shift together to energy efficiency and renewable energy, we thrive, our children thrive, 7 generations out thrives. So how do we do this together, and how do we utilize the IRA? So Rewiring America created a calculator to see what the IRA will provide for you. Now that we know, and I just learned this 2 days ago, that Oregon Department of Energy will be the administrator for all of our energy upgrades. Now I feel like since they've done this before, it should spill out pretty fast how to access it. But what you're going to see in here is the rebates are still not accessible, but the tax credits are. So let's go in and look. And are you guys seeing Rewiring America?
Yes.
Okay. So we can put in here our zip code. I own my home. My household income is $125,000. I'm married, I'm filing jointly, and we have 2 kids. And calculate. And what you'll see is what's available to me is $14,000 that come off the cost of energy efficiency equipment at the point of the installer. I have $12,000 in this same year accessible to me for tax credits as I put these in. And estimated energy savings per year is $1,400. So total incentives to upgrade my house right here, $26,000. Crazy. I don't think you can take that all in 1 year. I can't remember what the limit is for 1 year, but still you can take that over the 10 years that the IRA is available. As I said, I'm a little worried about that depending on who's in office, but get started now and do your most expensive one now. That's what I'm going to do. So here's how it might break down. In order to put in a heat pump water heater, you might need to, especially if you're switching off of a gas water heater, you might need to upgrade your electrical panel. Well, there's up to $4,000 available in rebate at the income level that I put in there to upgrade your electrical panel. I know that I'm going to put in an induction stove. I'm going to get all natural gas out of my home. So this year I have access to that $840. You can upgrade your wiring. That heat pump water heater generally costs anywhere from $2,250 to $2,500. Well, you get this much towards it. Heat pump air conditioning and heating units, you get up to $8,000. So you can see all this for yourself. Weatherization, which would be insulation or windows. And then there's some efficiency rebates. If you get a home energy score and can show that you're a certain percentage under the average American's usage, you can also get some rebates for some of your upgrades. I'm keeping a cat off my computer. Don't they always want to sit on it? So these were rebates. Doesn't matter what your earnings are. Doesn't matter how you file your taxes. These are tax credits. And so battery and solar is 30% tax credit. Geothermal heating, which you really don't need in our area, is 30%, but there are some areas in Oregon that it might be a really good way to heat. Again, more for your electrical panel. You can stack some of these. If you want to put an electric vehicle charger at your house, a new electric vehicle, provided it's on the list. I think there's only 8 or 9 cars right now that get the full 7,500 because most of the parts and manufacturing has to happen in the US. If you want to get a used electric vehicle, which is what my partner and I have done, we took previously leased vehicles. You can get 4,000. So, as I go through, you can look this up for yourself on Rewiring America, heat pump water heater, and again, more weatherization. If you're low income, I want to shift this a little bit. And so this is what we interact with. We're going to keep a homeowner, but I definitely have homeowners that make $55,000 a year or less. They might be filing singly. There might be 1 or 2 people. Let's go 2 and calculate, and you'll see it's a little different. Less in the tax credit area, still pretty good incentives. And as you go through, you'll see really similar on the rebates, but fewer tax credits because a person who makes $55,000 a year isn't paying as much taxes. So it's harder for them to get the tax credits back. And I love this, covering up to 100% of costs in some areas. So as these rules play out, you can see the rules are coming in late 2023 for the rebates. Tax credits are available right now. So all of these upgrades have a huge impact on your energy costs. And so still, if you do enough of these upgrades, and I would say enough of the upgrades, start with insulation, because that's the biggest bang for your buck. It's relatively inexpensive, but it can save you a lot of money per month. And then, you know, your envelope and windows, but then heat pump water heater is the next best thing, and checking out your heating system, your HVAC system. I'm going to tell you right now, we're switching from a gas furnace that's too old and about to die to an electric heat pump. And hopefully that'll, I don't know, we spend over $1,000 on natural gas per year. So this is going to really help my household. What if you're a renter? So let's switch this. I rent. My income, I'm going to put a single person, is $36,000 a year. I'm single and I live by myself. So there are some things for people who rent. Again, fewer incentives because you're probably not in charge of some of the aspects of your energy efficiency in wherever you're renting from. But you can still talk your landlord into these different aspects, the induction stove, definitely the heat pump, air conditioner, heater. And again, that with the Oregon Department of Energy's incentives and with the Energy Trust incentives, if you're in Pacific Power and PGE region, this would really help you be able to cool your home. And the biggest worry is cooling. A heat pump clothes dryer, which I know one person has one and they really like it, uses way less energy. Our dryer, we run it in the winter, but this time of year, we just put it out on a line and don't run our dryer. There's electric vehicles and charging available to you. And if you're in a multifamily rental, not just a single unit or a quad or duplex, there are some things at the landlord level that are just coming on board as well for heating, cooling, and solar. So, and I just think if you're renting, it's great to learn more about this stuff and really do discuss with your property manager or your landlord what to do. Also, there's rentals for manufactured homes and rental spaces, but you own the home, all sorts of other situations that they didn't put in this calculator. But if you contact Seeds for the Soul, we're just learning how to sort it out, but we'll definitely share with you what we learn. So, so the reason I'm showing you this is I want you to talk about it with all your friends. And I'm going to see if I can get click out of that, back to PowerPoint. Christy, I'm lost. There we go.
You got it.
Yay! So what you can do in any community is just talk about it and share that Rewiring America calculator and start really talking it up. I just feel like if we can get enough people primed and ready to roll, that as soon as these rebates are available, we should have people ready to dive in so we can prove that it's valuable and that it works. If your income level is, I think it's 150% above the median. So median in Corvallis is 93,000. So add another 45 to that. So 135,000. If you make more than that and your combined income in your household, then you wouldn't qualify for anything but the tax credits. And I'd say hit your go button right now. Go find out if you can put solar on your home or switch out of your fossil fuel heating system and get that induction stove going like today, because the rebates won't be available for you. But anyway, so what can faith communities do? You can promote, communicate, and educate within your congregation. You can fund community-based organizations and nonprofits. You can offset your personal carbon footprint. You can like pick a day in Earth Week and have people calculate their carbon footprint, put a dollar value on it, and make a donation to your congregation, which then they can put to work, either to put solar on your own building or do energy upgrades in your own building or energy upgrades out in the world. You can provide meeting spaces for CBOs and nonprofits to meet to work on climate solutions, and you can motivate people to act. And it's not just for their own benefit, but for the benefit of future generations. And I know congregations talk about care for creation, and that's exactly what we need to do. We are in the middle of a really fast mass extinction, where it's actually traveling faster than the previous mass extinctions. And we're just not recognizing it as a culture. Maybe as individuals we are. But anyway, at this point, I would love to, I'm going to drop out of the share, but we'll come back. And if I could find my cursor, there it is, and invite Michael Hughes to share a little bit about what his faith community has done. And I'm just going to put out there, they have been an amazing help to Seeds for the Soul and our outreach to community. So I'm out of here, Michael, and you're in. Thank you.
Cool beans. Okay, let me open this up. Your screen. Okay, so evening all. I'm Michael Hughes. I'm with the UU Fellowship in Corvallis, and Julie asked me to share some of the stuff that we've been working on around climate mitigation, adaptation, and climate justice. And so one part of this is this towards net zero campaign that we have. And this is grounded in UU principles. We don't have a creed that we go by, but we have these principles to guide us. And our second principle addresses justice, equity, and compassion. And our seventh principle calls on us to respect and care for the independent web of all life. And then our mission here at our own fellowship calls us to inspire action to a better world for all. So this Towards Net Zero program, that's where it's grounded. And the program has both a institutional component and for members and friends, where we say first, work to reduce your emissions. And then second, assuming that most of us are not going to get to zero emissions, take responsibility for those that we have. So UUFC, we track our use of fossil gas and the electricity we purchase. We do have solar, but we don't meet all our needs with our solar. So we do purchase electricity. And then we calculate the resulting carbon. And there, these two tables show that the data we have for the electricity we use in the top table, the electricity we use, and the fossil gas, and then converting that to carbon emissions and looking at that in a graph. This is what our emissions look like. Now that nice drop off at 2020, that's when COVID hit and the building basically shut down. And you see now in 2022, they crept back up. So this drop here is not, hey, this is all due to our good work. In 2021, our board adopted policy that said we were going to take account for our carbon emissions. and they established the Carbon Reduction and Responsibility Fund as a line item in our operating budget. So this table looks at whoop, didn't mean to do that. Sorry. Okay, there we go. This table looks at how we've been spending money since 2029. And in this, so here's the year over here on this column, the source. Now in here, I've labeled some things as donations and some things as budget. All this money is donated that comes from the members and friends of the fellowship. The difference is the budget, that's from pledges into the operating fund. Donations are special collections for other stuff. So you see, we've spent money on here on responsibility through donations. We actually gave a grant to Seeds for the Soul to support their work. In 2020, we used money towards weatherizing and efficiency in our building. So that's responsibility reduction. And you see, we spent money both ways. These highlighted amounts here, the 3,246, that's in both of those years. That's since the Carbon Reduction and Responsibility Fund was established, and that's what went into that fund. And yeah, and then so that's looking back at what we've been doing in 2023. We've a collaboration between three of our justice teams, the climate action team, the equity, diversity, inclusion team, and the secure housing and food team has really come together in work towards justice issues related to low-income folks, and that they don't have access to these energy savings that more financially viable folks have. So in 2022, we wrote an internal grant to the UUFC Justice Outreach Fund, and we got a $5,000 grant to seed a community-based project to increase the number of low to moderate income homeowners who can access these resources to reduce energy and to increase energy efficiency and switch to renewables. And what this grant is being used to do is to help Seeds for the Soul make contact with the social service agencies that work with these folks so that Seeds for the Soul can be in relationship and reach out to these low-income folks and help them tap into energy efficiency and conversion to renewables. For 2023, we have proposed again allocating this $3,246 to the fund. This is a proposal. The board has got to finalize the budget. That has not yet happened. And this will be used to provide gap funding in a community-based collaboration to enable very low-income homeowners get into ductless heat pumps. You know, with the incentives that are there, it may be that, whoa, for $200 you can get a ductless heat pump. Well, if you don't have $200, you can't get the ductless heat pump. And so this is not a lot of money. It's just but it would help provide some bridge funding. We're also writing another 5,000 Justice Outreach Fund proposal, and that we're writing. We don't know that we will get it, but we're optimistic to identify shovel-ready opportunities for very low-income homeowners once the IRA incentives hit, so that we will have identified the homeowners. They will home energy audits will have been done. The projects will be lined up, etc., and then help will be provided to make the application and then to work with the contractors. And again, this is in collaboration assuming it is funded, is in collaboration with Seeds for the Soul. And that's me. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think I get to.
Let me stop sharing. There we go. You're back up.
And I'll pipe in a quick thank you to Michael on all of his efforts and hard work
Oh,
on the
yeah,
proposal and seeking grants alongside us.
right. I do have to add, in 2016, the UUFC actually provided us $40,000 in a revolve loan that they allowed us to use for 4 or 5 years. And we've paid half that back, but then the other half, they're just 20,000 just revolves over and over and over so that we can do this good work. So that's what a faith-based community can do. And you aggregate some different congregations and you can make a whole huge hill of good happen. I love this slide. So one of my favorite authors, Kathleen Dean Moore, once spoke in Corvallis, and she said, Corvallis is a super saturated solution. And in science, a supersaturated solution is so saturated that you add one single seed crystal and the whole thing crystallizes. And that's how close we are to the solution we need to undo our climate crisis and whittle away at it so our next generations have a happy, fruitful, thriving life. And so I love to throw this in there. The power of her words have stuck with me for, over a decade when I first heard her say this. So we need to crystallize and focus and make it our #1 priority. I want to finish just with some quotes from Greta Thunberg, who I think is a true leader in her tiny little package of human on this universe. But you must not gamble your children's future on the flip of a coin. Instead, you must unite behind science. You must take action. You must do the impossible, because giving up can never, ever be an option. So head in the sand is a right of privilege or the luck of living right now, and anybody in our future really needs us to think wisely right now. There is hope. I've seen it, but it does not come from governments or corporations. It comes from the people. Well, I'm just going to say right now, I'm so hopeful because the government has created this IRA. And if we get to use the Inflation Reduction Act, that is where hope is going to come from too, because it's a heavy lifter. The people who have been unaware are now starting to wake up. And once we become aware, we can change. And people are ready for change. And you can't unchase the cow. Once people become awake to the crisis, but also to the solutions, I think we can make a cresting wave. The climate crisis has already been solved. This is the one that just blows my mind. If you read the book Drawdown by Paul Hawken, if we do those 80 things, we could actually start drawing down the carbon that's already there that our grandparents and parents put in. And by 2040, be at net zero, and start cooling our planet again. So the climate crisis has already been solved. We already have all the facts and solutions. All we have to do is to wake up to the change. So that is all I have for you. I'm going to stop the share, open for questions from our huge throng of people viewing, but I'm happy to discuss and share hope. So thanks for this platform.
Thank you, Julie. That was fantastic. I see one question in here from Melissa. Interested in learning the difference between hybrid water heaters compared to heat pump water heaters.
How do they compare? Sorry, I was looking
Yeah.
for didn't listen. A hybrid water heater compared to conventional will pay for itself in 2.5 years in the energy savings. It runs on about 1/3 of the energy of your regular water heater. And in fact, my good friend Brandon Trelstead, who's the sustainability captain for OSU, he stated that if you had just purchased a brand new conventional water heater and you switched it out to a brand new heat pump water heater, it would pay for itself in 2.5 years, and from then on, you'd be saving. He's like, I would do it in a second. I did it when mine broke. I didn't take out a perfectly good one. But I did see an immediate savings, like $20 a month on my bill. And that was with 2 or 3 people in the household using the showers and such. So it's significant. Let's see what else.
I also had some chat in here about heat pump dryers. I put in a link, but you're welcome to elaborate on what you know there.
You know, I don't know much except that our friend Nancy Evanson, who provides the energy retrofit clinics, you can access her through the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition's website. And Nancy has one, and she would tell you all about it. Like I said, I'm going to keep the dryer I have, and I just choose to try not to run it for at least half the year. And so I hang the clothes from here on in as soon as the weather shifted. So I don't know enough to give you a good answer.
I'll be dropping a link here for Nancy's information.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
If you really want to understand how your home systems work, she is such an incredible resource. And she'll also teach you about the IRA, all of the different incentives that are available, and she'll really help you prioritize your finances and help you
And
with that.
she will meet with people over Zoom, so she's not really limited to as to how far away someone is. She's, as far as I know, always available for anybody that can come in and sign up.
She's fantastic, and she requires homework. You do need to go look at your systems a little bit to start to understand them, but what's bad about that? That's great. Another thing that Seeds for the Soul will soon be offering is some financial counseling. So there are a few green banks and also some mortgage people that can help people who are maybe on the edge with their finances and feel like they can't afford to do energy efficiency. And so they're stuck paying the $200 and $300 power bill because, you know, they can't afford it. If they can't access us. But anyway, what she does is she helps aggregate debt and then refi in a way that you have enough money to do your energy efficiency upgrades, but you'll see such a reduction in your energy bill that it's possible that it could counter that aggregation of debt. And so there's a couple really good folks that can help us with that too, if you want that kind of information. We won't provide it because we're not experts. We'll just put you in touch with the person that can. Can heat pump style furnaces that are used to replace a gas furnace be tied with existing ductwork? I'm so glad you asked because that was my inquiry. We've had so far 2 different companies come out and do a bid on our home because we're in the middle of that. And we're going to make a small video and a blog about it so that people can look at what we're experiencing and we can share it. But what happened for us is our ducts are the original from 1951. And they're not big enough. They're 4-inch. And we discovered they're wrapped with, the insulation's wrapped with an asbestos tape. And so can't be used. But what we did learn is they can run a new duct for us. And we'll just seal off the old ducts. Otherwise, we would have to have spent, I don't know how much. I was quoted $15,000 in 2007. $15,000 to get the asbestos out of my home. So, you know, I don't believe everybody's going to have that. Probably anybody in the 70s and younger home probably does not have asbestos in it, but mine does. Anyway, so yeah, they definitely can be tied to your ducted system. And it's actually preferred, I think. And they'll fine tune it. And I'm so excited about it. I still don't know which one we're going to do, but we want to get an inordinate number of bids so that we can share what we learn. So, but we've gotten 2 very good bids so far. Does that answer your question, Melissa? I hope it does. The bids are free and they're thorough. The bid today took almost 2 hours, I want to say. They didn't need us present till the end and they explained everything, but we were present to show them where everything was. But worth doing, I would say, and then you can start planning.
Fantastic. Do we have any other questions or discussion points we want to add? Melissa says, are any of these rebates going to be retroactive? I have coworkers who have had the heat pumps installed in the last few years.
Sadly, not retroactive. However, On that Rewiring America site, there was a $4,000. I think I explained, I think it's to compare your energy efficiency to the average American home. And if you have a certain level of efficiency, you can access up to $4,000. And they're doing that for that very reason. People who've already done the hard work and didn't get these great rebates. So I can explain more for your friends later as that plays out. Dodging the cat again. But those are great questions. It's like you're a plant, Melissa. Did Christy give you a little list of things to ask? These are great.
Not a word.
Awesome. Another thing I didn't mention is with the heat pump program, there's supposed to be a thing called a gradient. Oh, what's the term I want? Heat pump and cooling device that's portable. Gradient portable heat pump that is possible for people to get to do their own apartment with cooling and heating that's super efficient. So, and again, I don't know that for certain. I've just heard that bandied about, and we'll wait and see as the rules unfold, but we'll be sure to tell you all when they come. Kind of like a window unit, yeah. But there are those ones that they sit on the floor in your home, and there's a hose that goes to a smaller opening in your window. So they're a little easier to use. And again, heat and cooling and uber efficient at it. So way better than those big units that sit in your window for cooling.
Definitely.
Curious enough, we should just go get one, Christy, and try it in your house just to learn about it.
Yeah, I was just telling Michael a bit ago, it's gotten quite warm in here just in these 80-degree days. So it'll be an interesting summer.
Yeah, it'll be fun to learn.
Well, thank you so much for those that came to hang out with us tonight. And thank you so much for everyone who tuned in for the whole week. We know it was quite a commitment to listen to us 5 nights in a row. So thank you for that. Again, all of the slides and videos, recordings will be sent out. I anticipate early to mid next week to those that have signed up. We'll also have contact information for all of the presenters. And we're happy to answer any follow-up questions that come up. I know sometimes I sit in a series and a week later, I'm like, I was thinking about that for a couple days. So we're definitely here as a resource. Thank you to Julie and Michael for presenting today. You guys did wonderful.
Thank you. Christy, can I throw in there too that I keep forgetting that this could be, someone out in Klamath Falls or Pendleton. I am certain that the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition and the different action teams, as well as I know Seeds for the Soul and Oregon Clean Power Co-op, would love to answer questions if these communities want to try and start their own version of these things. So please reach out if that's you.
Definitely opportunities for replication. So ask us questions in that direction as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much,
Christy.
Yes, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Tonight I'm going to remember to